One more day to get a little practice with the inequalities. And then on Monday, we'll kind of mix everything from this unit together to review. And we'll test on Tuesday. So on those sheets I gave you, go ahead and put a Y on the left side. The sign itself isn't as important as which direction the pointy part of the inequality sign is pointed. So, I mean, I can't exactly flip it around, but this is, the same as this. So these two things will be the same. All right, that's Y is less than. This is still having Y being the lesser of the two. All right, so we're looking at where the pointy part goes. For an inequality sign like this, with the Y on the left there, what type of line do we have? Dotted. So that is a dot. Write it down. Dotted, dashed, whatever. Right? It's not a solid line. Then, if the Y is to the left like this, to the pointy part, are we shading above or below the line? Below. When Y is on the pointy side, that is when we shade below. Okay? Everybody got it? All right, so next one. What type of line we got? Dotted. So we have a dotted line again. How do we know it's a dotted line? There's no line underneath the inequality symbol. All right. Which one are we shading, above or below? Above. This one's going to be shaded above. If our inequality sign is open to the Y or chomping the Y, that means we're going to be shading above. What about this one? What kind of line? Solid. So we have a solid line. Is this above or below? Below. So a solid line, and we are shading below. All right, last one. What kind of line? Solid line. And how are we shading? Above. Now with each of these, it's not necessarily the sign that you see, it's which side the Y is on, okay? So make sure you're paying attention to that part, whether it's the Y is open to it. If inequality is open to the Y like this one, that's where you're shading above. All right, if I had the same exact inequality sign but moved the Y to the right, that's going to be the other one where it's shaded below because the pointy part would be towards the Y. All right, everybody good on those? All right, so then where it gets a little trickier is sometimes we're flipping them, right? So when do we flip the sign? So we're going to look at each of these. First one here, we'll start there. Are we flipping the sign? No. What about the second one? No. Third? No. Fourth one? No. Bottom? Why is that one a yes? All right, so we got a negative in front of the Y. All these others, even if they've got a minus sign or a negative sign in them, those minus or negative signs don't matter. It has to be with the Y, okay? All right, middle column. First one there, flipping it, yes or no? Yeah, we got a negative coefficient. What about the second? No. Third? Yeah. Fourth one? Bottom one? That one is a no. Yeah, I heard a couple yeses there. There's no negative on the y, so that one is a no. All right, last column there. Top one. Yes. Second one. Third. Fourth. And the last one. All right. So you only flip it when you see a negative sign in front of a y or in front of the coefficient on the y. All right. At the bottom of that sheet, go ahead, make an X like that and number it 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. We've done a couple problems. It's been something kind of like that, and it asks you like which region is shaded kind of thing. They just randomly the region. Makes it easier for the next part. All right, so when we have this graphed, y'all, this line has what kind of slope? Positive. This line has negative. So we got a positive slope, we got a negative slope. Are they always going to be one positive, one negative? No, sometimes you get both of them positive, both of them negative, but for the most part, you see them like one positive, one negative, okay? So when we look at these different regions, in region 1, the positive slope is going to be like a y greater than. So it's going to be shaded above. The negative slope also is shaded above that line. So if we are, shading up here, that's what that's saying. That's above both of those lines. So we need the open part towards the y value. And that's after any flipping gets done, if we had to flip signs. For region 2, if I do region 2, that's over here. You can see that's above the red line, right? So we're above the negative still. That is below the other line, though. So that's a less than on the positive slope. Whoops. Didn't mean. All right, region 3, down here at the bottom. When it's down at the bottom like that, that's below both of them. So both of them get shaded below if it's down there. And then the last one, region 4, you can see that's below the red line and above the other line. For the most part, when you see it on a test or whatever, they just shade the one region. They do that because they're usually kind of restricted on like using colors or anything. When you have different colors, sometimes you do see it where the whole thing gets shaded there, and then the whole thing gets shaded there, and you're looking for where the two sections overlap. And so that would be like it's just shaded in region 3 as the solution. Any questions on those? So hopefully that helps a little bit. All right. So now we got an inequality here. We have to figure out which inequality is graphed. So, look at. When you look at the line underneath the inequality symbol, and the graph is a dotted line. That's the easiest thing to check typically, just it's kind of obvious. The main difference, what do you see as main differences between the answer choices? Yeah, some of them have the minus 5y, some of them have the plus 5y. What that affects is, one, whether we flip the inequality sign or not, but it also affects the slope, right? So the slope on our line in the graph, is that positive or negative? Negative. This is a negative slope. We don't have to actually figure out what the slope is because all of them have the same coefficients, right? So which answer choices have a negative slope? C or D, right? A and B have positive. A and B have positive slopes because you do opposite of A over B, okay? So now we're looking at C or D. Do we flip the inequality for C or D? No. So which one does it need to be? D. We cross out C. We are shading below. That's one that shows us shading below. Any questions on that? With one graph, that's really all you're doing is you're kind of like looking your way through it. So when you have a whole systems like this, we're still looking at the same basic thing. When you look at the answer choices, there are only a few differences. The differences are either our inequality symbols or on the first equation, whether it's a plus or a minus. Okay? So let's take care of the plus or minus first. That is for the solid line, right? How do we know it's for the solid line? There's a line underneath the inequality symbol. So when we look at the graph for the solid line, is that a positive or negative slope? Negative. So which one of those has a negative slope? A and B. Slope is opposite of A over B. So each of these would have, negative 6 over 1 for A and B. Okay? Now, the only difference really between A and B is our inequality sign, right? So when we look at the inequality sign, that's for the dotted line. If we're looking at the dotted line, are we shading above or below the dotted line? Above. That's above when it's shaded over here, okay? Maybe it doesn't exactly look above because it's almost more to the side, but that is going to count as above. Which of the answer choices is shaded above? B. Why is it B and not A? Yeah, when we have that negative sign there in front of the Y, we have to flip the inequality symbol. B is the one that's shaded above. Y'all, I ain't really doing any math on this, am I? It's just kind of thinking our way through, looking at our line types and where we're shading. All right, so if we're shaded at the top there, what does that mean I need? Above on both of them, right? Above and above. So when we look at the answer choices, I'll start that way this time, all right? We're looking for above and above. Is that above or below? Below. Why is that below? We have a negative coefficient on the Y, so we got to flip that sign. I don't even have to look at the second one, but the second one is below also. All right, is that above or below? Above? Above or below? Above. So that's possibly an answer, right? We'll come back to it if we need to. All right, above or below? Above? Above or below? That one's also right. So another possibility. Is this one above or below? That one is below. So that one's out. So we are down to those two. All right? The difference is the slopes for each of those lines. Which one's the positive, which one's the negative. Okay? You know what's easier to work with than slope? Y-intercept. What's the y-intercept for that line? -2. Is there a line going through -2? No. Slope's y-intercept is c over b, right? And if we look at this one, our y-intercept is -1, right? So that one doesn't work either. When we look at choice C, my y-intercept here, that is +2, which is that line right there, the dotted line. And my y-intercept here, -2 divided by -2 makes +1, and that's the solid line. Everybody see how that worked? I'm just kind of checking our way through it, right? What about this? How do we find out which one of those ordered pairs is the solution? You would have two main options. There's always more than a couple ways to solve a problem, but there are two main options. Option one, you could actually graph those lines and see which ordered pair falls into the shaded region. All right, that one takes a good amount of time. If you had Desmos, that's the easiest way to do it. Okay. Without Desmos, probably the easiest way is we're going to take these numbers and we're going to plug them in. We got x value and a y value, right? So for x, I'd have 3 times -2 minus -4, and I need it to be greater than -1. So that's the first inequality, okay? So if I do my math here, 3 times -2, that's -6, minus -4, I gotta do same change, so that becomes -6 plus 4, that's -2. Is -2 greater than -1? No, so I don't even have to check the second inequality. A is wrong. Everybody follow with what we did? All right, so we do it again for the next one. I've got 3 times -2 minus -1, and we need it to be greater than -1. 3 times -2 is -6, minus -1, we do same change. That's -5. Is -5 greater than -1? No. So on to choice C. All right, we got 1 and 2. So 3 times 1 minus 2 greater than -1. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 minus 2 is 1. Is 1 greater than -1? Yeah. So what we have to do then, we have to check the second inequality. I'll just switch over to the other side. So we got 1 minus 2 times 2, and it has to be greater than 4. 2 times 2 is 4. What's 1 minus 4? -3. Is -3 greater than 4? No. Well, that kind of leaves D, but we'll go ahead, we'll check it, make sure. So I've got 3 times 2 minus -4, and it needs to be greater than -1. 3 times 2 is 6, minus -4 is 10. Is 10 greater than -1? Yeah. Then we plug it into the next one. I got 2 minus 2 times -4. We need it to be greater than 4. 2 times -4 is -8. Change. 2 plus 8 makes 10. Is 10 greater than 4? Yeah, of course that one works. Any questions? Does that take a little bit of time to do it that way? Yeah, but that's probably less time than it would take to actually graph them and then see where all the points go.